And on a different note, it's been found that young people today, specifically millennials, are not buying homes like they used to. So what is causing this worrying trend? Here with us today is Dr. Vili Abraham from the Technology Marketing Department at Sapir Academic College here in Israel. Thanks so much for joining us. So why is this the case?
Well, we have different reasons. So one of the factors that it's not as affordable as it used to be. Prices have increased incredibly in the last few years. The other thing is the incomes have decreased. I mean, the average millennial earns about $35,000 a year now, in comparison to $40,000 that his parents could have earned. Another thing is the employability. Today, 65% of millennials are employed, as opposed to 70% that were employed in the 1980s. So all of these things together bring down.
And how many millennials are living with their parents today? Because this is also as a result of this difficult market.
Yeah, so if we look at the United States, in the United States, about a third of millennials live with their parents. And by the way, that's
an enormous number.
Yes, it's the highest in 130 years. So more millennials live with their parents than millennials that live with a roommate or a spouse. If we look at Europe, Eastern Europe and Southern Europe, you have more millennials who live with their parents. We're talking about 50 or 60% and more. If we look at Western Europe and Northern Europe, it's less than 50%. And in a survey that was published recently here in the country, about 15 to 30% of millennials live with their parents here in Israel.
Wow. Listen, Israel, I think, is unprecedented, because I actually read a study done recently, found that it takes a young married Israeli couple about 7 years to save up for a down payment. They're outrageous here, whereas in the U.S. it can take around 2 years to save up. So this is a global phenomenon, though, isn't this?
Yeah, well, let's start with the UK. If we go back to 1995, the median salary was about £19,000. The average home would cost about £85,000. So you had to work for about 4 years. If we look at what is happening now, well, in 2012, 2013, you have to work for about 12 years in order to buy an apartment. And the salary just went up by about 15 to 20%. It was £19,000, now it's about 22. And the same thing in the United States. The average apartment would cost, in 1999, it was $130,000. And now, in 2016, the beginning of 2016, it was $230,000.
Wow, that's an enormous jump.
It's unbelievable. And here in Israel, it's even more dramatic.
I can attest to that.
In 2003, if you compare 2003 to 2016, prices went up threefold.
Wow.
So it's really, really incredible.
It's really incredible. It's very sad, you know, because people are working really hard to make money and just have to keep on renting throughout their lives. I mean, but I want to know, are millennials who are better off, who are wealthier, are they more likely to buy a home than millennials who are not?
You know, it's a really interesting question. Millennials in general buy less homes, but poor millennials or worse off millennials do not buy homes for different reasons. First of all, they usually come from minority groups. They come from poor families. They are not educated. You know, if you have a bachelor's degree, then you are more likely to be employed.
Right.
So they're worse off, and that's why they cannot buy apartments. They cannot afford them. If we look at better off Americans, they do not buy apartments or homes because they want to invest in their education. They don't want to be tied up to a city. Right. You know, they want to be moving around from region to region, from city to city, in order to pursue better careers, better salaries. So the worse off are simply stuck, unfortunately, and the better off are mobile, and they don't want to tie themselves up to any particular place.
Right, and it used to be the case that's the opposite, that you could focus on your career and you could kind of have it all.
Exactly.
Yeah,
unfortunately, today the higher education is really, really expensive, and you just can't have both an education and an apartment. You really need the help of your parents.
Well, Dr. Abraham, thank you so much for being here. Depressing, but thank you for laying it out.
It's a pleasure.